You're listening to the Empowering Process Podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Hey everybody, Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process Podcast series. And we have with us here an amazing woman, Nancy Meek, and we're going to talk a little bit about her story and her journey through creating a women's group and writing a book. Right now, she's a loan officer. Who knows if she's going to stay there? So Nancy has been in the people helping business for over 30 years, both with patients and clients. She is an advocate for finding your true self and creating a life you love. Has co-founded Smart Women Series USA that supports and educates women of all background. And believe me, I've joined. So welcome, Nancy. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Gail. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit. We were talking just beforehand that this was a little bit of a journey. You did not actually make changes in your life to start a women's group. You never once thought that you were going to write a book, and you're going to be hosting your own podcast pretty soon as well. Yes. Right? So, yes. Life takes us on a journey. So talk a little bit about that journey for you and how things just kind of shifted.
Okay. Does it ever? Yeah. I kind of joke about this in the book too, that I've always been called the queen of reinvention because I've done so many things. And as I run into friends and people I haven't seen for a while, they always, say, well, what are you doing now? Because I know it's going to be something different. And so going back to the past, patient-wise, I was a dental hygienist and I saw lots of patients that way and saw the same ones for 24 years. So was very close to all of them and just loved them dearly. Finally retired from that field. Did a few other things in between, was an esthetician, an EMT, a couple different things. But I circled back around to real estate because I enjoyed it. And this time I chose to go into the loan end of it, which was kind of interesting. So I took the course, got licensed. My poor husband's like, oh, another license. Where are we going to hang all these, So I kept doing that. And I told him, well, if I pass this test, I'll do it. If I don't, I'm not retaking it. It's awful. So I came home and said, oh, I passed. I guess I'm doing this. And there are parts of it I love because, again, you get to help people and work with people. But along the way, I started learning that, there was a lot going on for marketing and social media that I didn't need in patient care that I needed in this field. And so I happened upon a group by Ryan Stewman called Apex. And I started following him because he was teaching all kinds of marketing with social media, was really good at it. I was far from his demographic because he generally spoke to 30-year-old males, and I'm clearly not that. But something resonated with me. So I went in person to one of his classes in Dallas just to see what he had to offer. And it was pretty amazing for somebody who wasn't even posting pictures at the time. I learned a lot. And that was a couple of years ago. So I started developing that mainly because I wanted to build my business. And it was great as a loan officer, and that started thriving and taking off. And along the way, somewhere I thought, I'd really like to do something meaningful too, because I've done so many great things and I always come back to wanting to help people. And I kind of just got directed along with a couple of gals. We brainstormed and decided we should start a women's group. That's what we really want. We're at the time in our life where we have the experience, we have the wherewithal, we want that kind of thing in our life. And so we started Smart Women Series USA, and it was basically a speaker-based event series. And we started throwing little events first, and then they mushroomed, and it grew, and it grew. And that kind of became more my passion than anything I was doing. So that was fun. And I became more and more involved in this Apex group, which is a mastermind as well. And lots of great contacts, which is pretty much how I came to meet you. And great people and training and mentoring. And so I'm still very much a part of that. I fly to Dallas once a month and we all get together. But the women's group has been the biggest fun surprise because even with COVID, which closed us down from doing some of the events we would have done, we've still grown and grown and had a very supportive group of females that seem very engaged. And I've been just really pleasantly surprised because the last event we had was a year ago, January, right before everything started to break. And we had some phenomenal speakers agree to come and speak at no charge. We had sponsors that took care of the food and the drinks because we wanted to make that event open to everyone at no charge. So we didn't charge for any tickets. We don't charge for the membership. And we had over 200 people come. And it was in a helicopter hangar, and it was very exciting. And they did, the helicopter took people for rides, and speakers, spoke. So we knew we were on to something. And our next one was slated to be in October, this past October, and we had 500 people slated to go. And of course, we had to cancel that and postpone it. And we're just now talking about putting some events, not that large, but smaller ones together again, because everybody's ready to, get together and meet each other. And we do virtual things, but as you know, it's a lot more fun in person.
Oh, you just don't get the hug. You don't get the energy, no. Right? It's just not the same. Yeah.
No. So we're dying to get back on track and do that. And then the other piece of it that kind of came from all that is now, instead of actually being the loan officer for the company I'm at, I do the business development. And that would have never happened if I hadn't had all the social media training. So I'm able to do something much more creative and fun that I enjoy, because a lot of business development is events. So they go hand in hand. And we sponsor things for the women's group. So that kind of goes together. And in the meantime, I started a wine club, which is just for fun. And we also push, meld that. There's lots of crossover with the women's group and the wine club.
5 more days, right? 5 more days.
I'm finishing up 75 hard, 5 more days, and I can drink the wine. But so they all kind of just mushroom together. And now it's very busy because I have all 3 that I'm juggling with events and things, but they're more like-minded with each other. And I'm just loving it. And then along came the idea of doing the book, which came from Apex as well. We were very much encouraged to put together a book. And as I was working with my coach on that, I started putting my story together of all the goofy things I've done, and moving to Memphis when my husband was in graduate school and that whole experience. There were just all kinds of goofy stories. But what I found was in the women's group, as I talked to people, they had some very dramatic and inspiring stories that people probably need to hear. So I started asking who wanted to contribute to the book. And I had an overwhelming response. So, and it's not all females. We do have males telling their stories as well. But it ended up being a compilation of a lot of different things. So I figure there's a story in there everyone will relate to. And I'm just hoping it really, really motivates and inspires people to understand you'll get through this. You can reinvent yourself. You can start over. You can, you can do it.
Right, exactly. And we were also talking about people being stuck in a career that they're not happy with, because I was, right? Because I was making good money. And, what it did was it afforded me to play on the weekends, but it also during the week, and honestly on the weekends too, my soul was being sucked dry. But I didn't have, and I tell it like it is in this podcast, I didn't have the balls to walk away, right? Until I was fired. And, I had been in high level positions in other companies, and to be fired, I was like, who do you think you are? Right?
Yeah, don't you know?
Right? Do you know what you just lost? Right? It was the best thing that happened to me, because I did not want to go back to corporate America after that, and started doing consulting work and things of that nature. And it's at a point, and that's what your book seems to be about. There's a point, a tipping point, where you make a decision that you're going to stay in that rut and not get out of it and be miserable, or know that there's something better and go find it.
Right? Exactly. And that's why my mantra is, aside from the fact that it's obvious I want to help and support and educate women, what I really want to do is have them create a life they love. That's why I say it that way, because so many people do get locked into something, and the fear is what holds them back. Is, I know what I have and I'm comfortable. And if I leave this and I go out and try something else, yes, I might love it. It might be great, but I might fall on my face. And, we all face that every time you make any kind of a big change in your life. So I was hoping that what this book might do is resonate with people that, you can overcome that. And there are tools you can use to help make yourself take those steps and look at it differently and take the leap, because you only get one shot, right? So you don't want to be stuck in that forever and ever. You really want to get up every morning and go, I feel really good about what I'm doing.
Right. Absolutely. I call it, and I've had many clients, not many, I've had clients that we get to the edge, right? We've done all the prep work, we've done all the planning, we know exactly where we're going, and we're on the ledge. And I'm like, we're ready to pull the trigger, right? Let's jump. I've got your hand. You're not jumping alone this time. You have a coach. And there's a percentage of my clients who that's the end of our coaching sessions.
Wow, but that's a great feeling for you. Very, very rewarding.
Well, for those who jump, right?
Okay.
Right. It's those who turn around and go back. Right.
Oh.
That's like, right. There's something underneath that we need to work at. Right. It has nothing to do with whether or not you can create something. It has to do with why are you holding back? What is the fear? And it's not the normal fear. We're all afraid of failing. We're all afraid of being embarrassed. We're all afraid of shame, right? So no human being is not affected by those. And I don't care how successful, because come on, Nancy, you do well, right? And you still have those moments where you're like, oh shit. Do I want to take this? Yeah.
Every time you try anything a little different. And that's why one of the tools I offer is coaching and mentoring. I tell people, I think they don't understand that to invest in yourself is really a worthwhile thing. It's something you must do. Even if it's short term, if it's just someone else to be the voice of reason that's telling you this does make sense and you can do this.
Right. Exactly. So I also am in a mastermind group, and it's all coaches. And today we had a coaches corner where we bring questions and we help solve it for each other. And, one gentleman there's a process in this group, well, when you're a new coach, you start off with this, you start off with that. And he has a training course or a group coaching course that he's ready. And, the first step is to have, a challenge or an opt-in. He's like, I don't have a challenge. Do I need to stop and create a challenge? And I'm like, I've never done a challenge. And I've had plenty of training, plenty of motivational speaking events, right. Never occurred to me that I have to do a challenge and before I can do that. No, these are just suggestions. It's not the Bible, right? Right. And we're all like, jump, right?
Well, there are so many scary parts to it. It's fear of the unknown. And you're right, the embarrassment thing is real. Right. I mean, you are going to have, as you probably know, the people that are going to most judge you and criticize you likely are the closest to you.
Absolutely.
And that is the hardest thing to take when they're telling you, oh, that's stupid. Don't do that. Doesn't make sense. Why would you leave your good job?
Oh, my God. Get a job with the government. You'll have a good retirement plan. That's what I grew up with, right? It's like, what?
Oh, yeah. My dad was very corporate. And while they were very encouraging and, you'd get that you can do whatever you want. But really what they were expecting you to do is go to college and get a corporate job.
Right.
So it's like, well, okay, but that doesn't work for everyone, because after a while that doesn't serve you,
Right. And in this day and age, I mean, we're so fortunate. We're able to ask the question, what else is there? Right. And that's the type of client that I get. So not so much the client that is looking for more or looking to build more, but the clients who have built and they're not filling their soul. Right.
Well, don't you feel like that? And you probably went through this too. You kind of reach a point, and I associate it with having more experience in life. But when you're getting past in my case, raising children time and career time, eventually you kind of look around and say, well, I need more purpose. And so then you start thinking about, well, what can I do that would be, a sense of giving, and that would make me feel like I'm making a difference. And I think a lot of people reach that stage at some point in their life. And, if you've got all the other things that you've done in your past, I guess they help direct you one way or another. But there's a chapter in the book too, where it's just about people that wanted to make an impact. So they didn't have a terrible necessarily, a death in the family or anything, but they just finally reached a point where they thought, I want to do something more purposeful.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And that purpose is the biggest driver. And my podcast is about purpose, right?
Mhm.
Finding your purpose, because, and it's really interesting because purpose is not this God-given thing. I mean, it's like we don't have a path we have to go down, right? We're here with choice, right?
Mhm.
We have choices, right? Free will,
Yeah.
and our purpose is to have fun, to
Mhm.
experience, right? And
Mhm.
so when I work with clients and we're looking for purpose, we're looking for something that resonates with how you feel, right? Does this
Mhm.
feel right? And we identify the feeling that's perfect for them, and then we name it. Mine's delicious.
Oh, that's good.
Right? If it
Yeah.
doesn't feel delicious, I'm not going to do it. Right? So some of those stories in those books, or writing the book, the process of writing the book, is this what led you to also wanting to now do podcasts?
Yes, pretty much. It was kind of a step-by-step thing as we went. Everything led me to something else. And
Right.
I had toyed with the idea, kind of shelved it until I got the book further along and a couple more things in place. And then that kind of fell into place too, because a lot of the contacts we've made with the women's group, one of my partners is in radio and so forth. So we had several contacts that do podcasts and radios and things. And I was not wanting to try to put that all together by myself. I am too overwhelmed as it is. So when we found this gentleman who had a studio and he said, well, I'd love to have you gals come in here and, for a fee, we can have the producer do the editing and do this and that. And I thought, that's the way I can do it. So it sort of fell into place at the right time where she and
Right.
I were both ready to go forward and do the podcast. So we're putting the pieces together now, and hopefully we'll have that going too. But yeah, you do. I'm sure there's so many choices of things you can do that you feel like are worthwhile, but you have to really pour yourself into them. So you've got to
Oh,
make your
it's
choices.
really hilarious. I have people, it's hilarious. I had a one-to-one with someone this week. Gail, I can so push your coaching. I can so get you more clients. Let me help you. And I'm like, my focus is the podcast. No, let me help. I'm like, no, my focus. And so finally I said, you know how you can help me? He's like, yeah, and because he wanted to help me and I love him. Right.
That's so
Thank you.
nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, when I'm ready to launch, I will share with you my links and I want you to push that and promote
Yeah.
that for me. And that he finally heard me saying, that's where my focus is, right? So yes, when I'm ready. And so we've got another meeting in a few weeks to get that happening.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I mean, as you know, it's like just writing the book and then doing podcasts. They're big projects. So in order to do them properly, I wanted to be able to give it a little time and attention. But
Exactly.
there are days.
Well, we met through 75 Hard, and Chris, who is creating a mastermind locally called Iconic.
Right.
And so those who don't know what 75 Hard is, it is a challenge, and it's a physical and emotional and mental challenge. There are
Mhm.
physical things that you have to do, but the challenge is getting up in the morning and committing to doing them.
Mhm.
Right. And then drinking a gallon of water and living in the bathroom for 75
It's the
days
really
straight.
hardest part of the whole thing.
That's for me as well. And no alcohol, so that's no wine, pure
Right.
water, no flavor. So like my lemon water, I missed my lemon water for 75 days. And through the process, I know I had some ahas. Were there some ahas for you during that?
Yeah, mostly just the fact that I was able to do it because I've always worked out, but this requires, for people who don't know, 2 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outside. Now, you would think being in Phoenix, that wasn't a big challenge for weather, not like what you had, And we did have warmer weather, but for instance, last week we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 days in a row with gale force winds. And you had no choice. You had to go out and walk in that for 45 minutes. And so, I've had allergies ever since because I've been out in the middle of this wind, but you realize it's, there's not a choice. You've made this commitment, you're going to do it. So my poor husband, who's doing it with me, to be supportive, we'd come home when he got home from work and we put on all our stuff and go outside and get our 45 minutes in. So it definitely will stay with me, because while I may not continue drinking a gallon of water a day, I was never great at drinking water, so I know I will drink more. I now know I can go 75 days without sugar, which I would have never dreamt in my life, because I love a chocolate chip cookie, but I haven't had one of those for a long time. So you definitely have takeaways. I mean, you can't not change after doing that 75 days.
No. And for me, I mean, yes, the food was a bit, I worked with a trainer because I have, personal issues. And I lost only 6 pounds, but I lost 2 inches on my waist.
Wow.
So that's, I mean, the muscle is incredible.
Yeah.
And she's like, you've got, definition in your arms you never had before, Gail. I'm like, I know. And I have a butt.
I know that it's kind of fun, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of in time for swimsuit season. So that was a good move. But I also had those wine club meetings where we do tastings, because I'm running a wine club and I'd have to show up and not taste the wine. So
right.
It's kind of humorous. I just had to tell them, you guys enjoy it. I'm not going to be tasting it, but I'll get you all here together. So
it was a good mindset exercise, so if anybody's interested in it, leave a comment. I'll connect you with Chris, and, definitely join his 75 hard group. But you feel good when you're done at the end of the day, because you honored your commitment. And what a great feeling to end the day, because if you end your day, whatever mood or attitude or thought process you have as you go to sleep, that's what you wake up to. So to go to bed feeling that you've accomplished something, you wake up knowing you can accomplish something. And that was the motive. That's why I started the podcast. That's why, I made some major changes, and you'll see some shifts happening that are subtle, that are subtle because of this experience. But I love your wanting to give and help women in particular. And, yes, not excluding men, but women are a little different. Another person that I talked with, and I'd love your feedback on this. So here was her takeaway of women, or in business, because we were talking about corporate America and how it has to change, right? And she feels that, women in corporate, we're talking corporate in particular, got too masculine in order to climb the ladder, right? I know I did, right? Which is why I didn't like it. And they're starting to re-embrace their femininity and their feminine power and their feminine strength. Men are starting to get comfortable with the shift in their life and become softer. There are more men now who embrace their feminine side without being embarrassed or ashamed, or, people think I'm gay. No, you're soft, right? You don't have to hunt, kill, right? You can shoot from afar, right? And so there's a leveling starting to happen. And in that leveling, an understanding of each other that was never there before.
I think that's true. I haven't been in corporate America as much as you, because when I was in patient care, it was a small private office. But with the mortgage industry and a couple of the other things I did, I witnessed that. And I do notice that seems to be the case. Everybody's kind of more meeting in the middle and more aware of all the things that go with it. Right. I mean, I can't imagine when I was in my 20s, I didn't have to work corporate, and that probably would have been a real challenge, because back then I think it would have been a whole different world than it is now, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And I should say too, I didn't tell you this, but when we do everything with the women's group, the other thing we do is we always partner with the philanthropy. And the one that we've worked with the most is Fresh Start Foundation for Women. And that's been really a fun surprise because they have a whole foundation where all they do is take any woman off the street, doesn't matter what your situation is. And it's not to live there, it's to be trained. And they do everything from teach you how to use a computer, do a resume, consult with an attorney about things so that you can go back out in the world and, be successful. And it's just a fantastic organization. So that was a kind of an exciting piece we didn't even expect to have that we added. That's really been fun.
Awesome. I might actually use that information. I have a panel for the podcast that I'm pulling together now. And the discussion we're going to have first will be about rape. But I have people who want to get on the panel with me on domestic abuse, right? And dependencies like alcoholism and drug abuse and things of that nature. So that we can talk about where do you go for help? And that's basically at the end, we're going to talk about pulling yourself out. So reinventing yourself, you've been very, very fortunate to be able to reinvent yourself from a space of being okay where you are, but just ready for a change, right? And so
Right.
we don't need the brick over the head to shift, right? That was my big lesson, right? Because I need the whole brick wall sometimes on my head before I pay attention. Not anymore. I was like, if this feels like it's time to change, then it's time to change, and that's okay. Right? It doesn't mean you're disrespecting where you were before.
No.
It just means it's time for a change. Right?
Well, and I say in the book too, because my story wasn't as dramatic. I mean, I did lose my mother very young, and that had a lot to do with me feeling like, boy, you better do everything you can because you don't know how long you'll have. That was a motivation. But as far as the dramatic things that a lot of people had, I wanted to let people know that you have permission to change and you don't have to hit rock bottom.
Right.
You can still say, okay, there's something that interests me and I don't have it so bad, but maybe that'd be better, or maybe that would serve others, or there should be a lot of reasons you do it, not just only because you've hit rock bottom and you don't have any choice.
Right. Right. It's interesting from a Abraham Hicks perspective, right? A lot of times people hit rock bottom because they stay in resistance, right? And then when you hit rock bottom, you give up the resistance. And that's why you float back up.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes
and so
that's the journey. Yeah.
Right. So let's just keep floating, guys. Let's not resist at all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can all stay afloat and hold each other, up and move forward. So I love that your mission is helping women in particular, but people stay afloat and make a shift if they want to.
Yep, I encourage it. I really do, because people have called me crazy, but every time I make a change, whether it works or it doesn't, and I've had plenty of things flop along the way. I built an online business and poured my heart and soul into it, and it didn't go, but I learned a lot from it, and I don't regret it.
No,
so I think you should still try it. If there's something you're dying to do, go do it.
Right. So so I've gotten so that I'm not ashamed of failures because I've had so many.
Me too, basically.
Right. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, what did work? Not much, but that worked. Okay, so we won't do that, and we will do that next time. That's simple.
Yeah,
it's that simple. So
you're not failing, you're not learning. So
yeah, exactly, because you're not jumping off the cliff. Right, and you're not going to die. That's another line of mine. When I moved out to San Diego from Boston, now lots of fear in the Boston community, and I had people come up to me and, "You're so very brave." I'm like, what? Why? Because you're moving 3,000 miles across the country. I said, to beautiful San Diego, right? I don't understand. Right. But Gail, you're leaving your family. I said, Will I have a roof over my head? Probably. Will I have clothes on my back? Absolutely. I'm bringing my clothes. Will I have food in my mouth? I'm sure I will. What else do I need?
Yeah.
What's there to be afraid of, right?
Yeah.
And, that's basically the attitude that I have, and there have been times when I didn't have a roof over my head.
Oh,
yes, that's a whole other story.
okay.
For a short time, but and I didn't have much food in my mouth either, because of a choice that I made that blew up in my face. But guess what? Within 6 months, I was rocking and rolling. Right?
Yep.
Rocking and
You
rolling.
learned how to get back up. So
Yep.
That's the key.
Yep. And that's just it, guys. And especially if you're involved, reach out to Nancy. We'll have information at the bottom where you can contact her, get involved with her women's group. You don't have to do it alone. There's resources that you can turn to. There's information that is out there. There are stories that you can listen to for encouragement. There are tools, techniques, processes, and support. So, and I'm so happy that I met you, that I'm part of that group of yours now.
I am happy too.
I know. And that I will get to see you face to face when I do my road trip for sure.
Good.
Either I will hit you in Texas or I'll hit you in Arizona, depending on the timing of my trip.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much for your time. And everybody, this is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process Podcast with Nancy Meek, and definitely her women's group, Smart Women Series USA, and maybe Scottsdale Wine Club if you're in that area.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This was great. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process Podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailkraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.